Hi, in this video I would like to show you how to use a control rig plugin in Unreal Engine 4. I use Unreal Engine 4.26 and control rig plugin is a pretty new system, so maybe something will change. Although it's pretty big system, I don't know exactly everything about it, so maybe I'm wrong somewhere. And control rig can be used in different ways. Here I will mostly show you how to use it for something like procedural animation, how to use it inside together with Anim Blueprint. So first of all, I will just make a little overview of what the control rig is and there's some basic concepts about it, and then maybe I will give a more practical example, like I don't know, something useful like legs IK or something like that. So let's get started. First of all, control rig plugin is a plugin and it's not enabled by default. You have to go to the plugins window, search for it, and enable it. Once this is done, you can create a control rig. So to create the control rig, the most easy way is to take the skeletal mesh and right click on it and create control rig asset. Once it's done, you open it and you see that it's something pretty similar to an Anim Blueprint. You have the preview mesh, you have the skeleton, here you have curves, and here you have variables, and here you have the graph, like a typical Unreal Engine 4 graph. So what's the difference between Anim Blueprint and control rig? First of all, in the Anim Blueprint that we have here, you have typically two graphs. One is the Anim graph, when you have various nodes that manipulate poses. So you can blend between poses, you can have a state machine that, you know, it's transition between poses. And more interesting for us now is those nodes, call it skeletal controls. So you have, for example, modify bone or IK or copy bone. Those nodes basically usually take a pose. Basically it's a frame of an animation, one frame. So those nodes take a pose and modify one or many bones in this pose, and that's which is important, that they work on one pose. And the control rig is basically a bunch of those kind of nodes. So the control rig, it's not really, you cannot really see it like in the Anim Blueprint with those poses, but it receives one pose, one frame of animation, and it can modify it in various ways. And this graph is basically a lot of skeletal control nodes. Another difference between control rig and Anim Blueprint is that in the Anim Blueprint, you have those two graphs. You have the Anim graph that will modify the pose, and you have the event graph that will make different calculations and create variables and store values in those variables, and then the Anim graph will read those variables and use them in the Anim nodes. The control rig graph does both of them. It can modify the skeleton, the pose. It can read and write into the pose. And it also can make calculation and create variables, write to the variables and read from the variables. Everything in one graph. So that is the biggest difference between the two. And in fact, it's something very, very useful and very powerful to have this in one place without going always like here between those two. Another difference between control rig and Anim Blueprint is that even you can see here this rig hierarchy skeleton and the mesh in the preview. The control rig doesn't really depend on the skeleton. Those bones here are just like a declaration. The control rig says, I need the bone skeleton. I expect the bone skeleton, root, pelvis, head to work, but it's not hard linked with the skeleton asset. So for example, if you make a control rig for, I don't know, IK, some complex IK for one skeleton, and you want to use it for another skeleton asset, which have some of the bones that are relevant to us that have the same name, so you can just reuse it. You can see that also another way. So if I take here the control rig and I check its references. If I take the control rig and I check its references, you see the skeleton and the mesh are here because we use them in the preview. But you see those references here are in pink, and actually they are editor-only references. So during runtime they will not be used. So when you load the control rig, the skeleton will not be loaded. And also there are soft references. And if you check the same graph for the Anim Blueprint, you will see that Anim Blueprint have a hard link, which is both a hard link, hard reference, and a runtime reference to the skeleton. So as I said before, if you made some complex Anim Blueprint for one skeleton and you have another mesh with another skeleton with probably mostly minor differences, nothing relevant to your Anim Blueprint, you cannot just take and reuse it. No, you have to copy it and recreate another Anim Blueprint. So which control rig this kind of dependency is removed. So here you have those bones, but it's just like really a declaration that's saying I need those bones to work, and when I will apply it to some mesh, it will check if those bones exist or not, and then find the real bone with the same name. Now let's make a simple example to see how it works. let's use a node similar to modify Bone, that here is called set transform, and you can see you can choose the bone. We will rotate, move the head. Once I put the head here, you see the head is instantly dropped down on the ground. Well, this is this control here, auto compile, that is enabled by default, means every time you modify the graph, it's recompiled and re-executed instantly. And by the way, here our skeleton is a pose bed. We can also choose some animation, for example here, idle animation. And now, why our head is on the ground? Well, because we didn't really input any transform here, so the head just set to 0. And this is an important thing here, space drop down. This kind of space drop down, you will see it in almost every node. And there's always two spaces, local space and global space. What those mean exactly? Well, local space, it's the parent bone space. So if I put it in local space at 0, it will be just in the same place that the neck is. You see, like that. But now if I move it a little bit higher, it moves like so, that it's correct. And the global space is actually the root bone space. So the root bone itself, it's always at 0 translation, 0 rotation inside the control rig. And it's not the world space, okay? So if you need the world spaces, sometimes you need it, there are two handy nodes called to world and from world. So you can take a world space coordinates and transform it in global space, so that you, it means root space, root bone space coordinates, and then feed them here. But that's important to remember those spaces. Now let's do something more interesting. There is another node called offset transform. You can create it like so, or you can take the head and drag it here and choose with from different nodes involving the head. No, this one is add offset. This node simply will apply a new transform, multiply the existing, a new transform by the existing one, so it will add an offset. So for example, if I want to rotate the head, I will create here a rotator, and my preferred way to create a rotator, it's call it from earlier, and then you can choose, you see, rotation order, and that's, I believe, the only place in Unreal until now where you can choose this. So this is super handy because it solves your what is called gimbal lock problem. So if you want to rotate all the way from minus 180 to 180 around the y-axis, you can choose this rotation order, and you will not have the gimbal lock problem on the y. You will have it on the z. So you can choose like that. That is just a side note. So let's rotate this head like so, okay, or like so. Now it works. Now let's say we want to use this control rig inside our anim blueprint. Okay, so I open the anim blueprint of this guy, and here I put the control rig, I connect it, and I have choose which control rig I have to use, and yeah, I compile it, and here we go. We have our head rotated like that, and here also the head is rotated. Everything works from the start. Yeah. Now we also can preview the control rig executing on this mesh and the level. If we go into the control rig and here choose the character, so you see, you can see it and you know, do some debugging with it. Okay, now let's do something more useful. Let's make the character look to something. We will use an aim node, which is a lookat, equivalent of lookat node in the anim blueprint. We will rotate the head. Here we have to specify different things. First, the axis, primary axis is where we look. So for the head, the primary axis is Y, and the up axis is X. So here we now we will put Y as axis, and you see he's looking down because our target is just here. That's 0. If I do that, he's looking like so. And okay, now we have secondary axis, which is the up. So I will say the up is X, and now we have two kind of here choices: direction or location. Well, location is just a place in the world, in this space, relative to this bone, and if bone is known, I think it's relative to the root. And direction is the you know, the direction, the unit vector relative to also some bone. So we will take the location, I'm sorry, the direction relative to the neck. And our neck is how it is. Our neck also points, the up is point this way. So we'll put here neck direction, so head and neck up points in the same direction. Okay, and this we can just close and forget. Now for this one, if I put some, I don't know, some number here, now we look like so. Okay, and but this is not very useful. Which is useful is to create something that we can control with a variable. So first of all, I will create a variable of type vector, call it aim, put it here, and you know what happened? It crashed. So that's because it's very new. It's not 100% stable yet. Now we created a variable aim of type vector. We put it here, connected to the target, and now if we modify it, we can move the head. Another cool thing we can do to avoid the head moving too quickly, we can smooth it. So I tap smooth, average over time, and we put it here. Now when we change the aim, the head will move more smoothly. Another cool thing you can do with the control rig is to take this pin here and choose add visual debug, so you can see which value you have, where it is, I mean your target. And here you can change some values, and you can like show it as point or like vector, stuff like that. You can choose also the space, pretty useful. Now what we would like to do is to take this into the level and make our character to look to something. And for this we need to pass this aim from the world space, from the level to the control rig. So we need to make a couple of things. First, you remember we need to convert the coordinate spaces from world to control rig space. That is simple, we just use from world. Here it will not change because of world as this level, we are already at 0. And next thing, we need to pass this variable from the anim blueprint. And for that we will just simply open this I, and it's like a variable in blueprints, it becomes public. So now if we go in our anim blueprint, we can click here and you find this variable available, and now you can use it, you can input it like a pin. So I already created a variable aim here, which I will hook, and it's at 0, so it looks like so. And I already created a little bit of code. So in the character we have a variable target, which is an actor, and this actor is set here to this sphere, which is like so. And in the anim blueprint, in the event graph, we will take the location of the target and put it into aim variable. So it will be stored here, then in the anim graph it will be passed to the control rig, and the control rig will take this input, transform it into global coordinate space of the guy, apply an average, and then use as the target for the aim for the head. And now if we simulate, we can move the sphere, and you see, I hope you can see, our friend is rotating his head like so. And if I do play, I can also enjoy it. So that's it for this first part. Well, just I won't really explain that in detail, but another way to use the control rig is together with the sequencer. And for this, inside the control rig here, you can create the controls, and you can hook those controls to basically whatever you want, like to this, and then you see when you move those controls, you can move them like so. Translate, rotate, and it will feed this value here. And not only this, but then you can take this character, this mesh, I'm sorry, this rig, and just drag it into the level. It will create a sequencer, whatever it's called, sequence, and those controls will be available for you to like animate the stuff. See, you can animate the head like so. And then when I play, it works. But this is something I will not really explain further in this tutorial, maybe in another one. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have some questions and something is wrong, please leave a comment. Bye.